Midsummer rolled around, and all the grizzlies headed down to the coast to wait bright and early. The second the first salmon leapt out of the water, the good times were here. These big fuzzy bears could barely contain themselves, dying to gobble up those salmon. It had been nearly a year since their last salmon feast, and they could barely remember that rich, delicious taste. Right now, they didn't need much, just one salmon was enough to wake up their long-dormant taste buds. This year's salmon were just as tender and plump as ever. On the other hand, Rina and her family were also getting ready for the salmon's arrival. But the salmon coast was no place for them, so they headed to a much more remote spot. There were plenty of other tasty treats here, and this spot was like a seafood buffet for them. There were tons of mussels, easy to snack on like sunflower seeds, so they could eat their fill. Every now and then, they could even find all kinds of fish and crabs hiding under the rocks. Rina knew the salmon had started their run, and the coast was already teeming with plump salmon. And it had only been a few short days. The grizzlies were all eating their fill and totally content, and that long-missed taste of fresh fish made them feel the pure joy of being a grizzly all over again. Meanwhile, Rina headed to an even more remote river where the salmon hadn't arrived yet. Most of the salmon were still fighting their way past the coast. Rina was incredibly thin at this point because after months of giving birth and nursing her cubs, her fat stores were almost completely gone. Even so, Rina kept waiting for the salmon to swim home. Then the rain came and Rina knew the time was right, so she took her cubs and hurried down to the river. Her fishing instincts kicked in right away. This was her first salmon of the year, and it was also the first time the little cubs had ever tasted salmon. They absolutely loved it. It was salty and tender, perfect for them. As more and more salmon swam home, the grizzlies started following them up into the inland rivers. Small waterfalls were the perfect fishing spots, and there was no skill to fishing here. All you needed was quick reflexes. But the competition here was fierce, so Rina would never choose to fish at these spots. She was heading to where the salmon first gathered, and after 2 weeks of traveling, she arrived at this salmon pond. During this season, salmon gathered here in unimaginable numbers. Even more surprising, there was no competition among the grizzlies here, and they had no hostility toward any other bear that came along. There were so many salmon here that they could never catch them all, and the fish were packed together far more than anyone could imagine. This place was like a bear's paradise, where every day was just eating, drinking, and playing with no worries at all. And from here on out, life here would be more than enough to fatten up Rina's cubs. Once little S, Ann, and Bo were nice and plump, their mom would end their journey for the year, and they'd head back to their den to hibernate once more.